Well, as usually lately, this has been super late, but still wanted to talk about Michael Todd versus VITALY LALETIN. I thought this match was very interesting, but also pretty surprising to me. I did think that probably Michael Todd was going to win this match, and pretty much everything went exactly the way that I thought it was going to go. I think the biggest thing to me was that Michael made a lot of mistakes in this match. So to me, Michael did kind of end up blowing this match a little bit. Now, I do want to be careful in the way that I say that because I don't think that that means Vitaly certainly would not have won if Michael didn't make mistakes. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that the match ending in the exact way that it did, which was on fouls or on Michael accidentally dipping his finger below the pad, things like that. I think if Michael hadn't have made those mistakes, this probably would have been more of a war. It probably would have been a longer match. Not saying Vitaly would have lost because his flop press looked great and his ability to climb after the flop press looked very, very impressive. I'm just saying I think the match would have looked different than it did if Michael had not made those mistakes. And if you guys don't know what those were in round one, Michael right off the go, he takes hand control. He looks really, really good, or maybe not hand control, but hand control for Michael Todd. His wrist was back a little bit, but he was controlling height very effectively. And this results in I think we get one or two starts, and eventually we see Vitaly in this position exactly right here, where Vitaly he stops even trying to contest height in the match. And that was something that was super impressive to me, is to see VITALY LALETIN completely resorting to a flop press. He's decided he can't even challenge Michael for height in this match. It's not even possible. And so Vitaly goes with that flop. So already that was very interesting to me, the fact that we see Michael Todd is the guy controlling the hand, controlling height in this match versus Vitaly. I think that was very unexpected for a lot of people. But then on top of that, Vitaly's flop press was really, really good. It was really strong. So one thing we saw in this match, and this is with anyone who's super tall like this, but obviously Vitaly is probably the best in the world at this, at his height, is he has the ability to follow his opponent. So we see Michael dragging his elbow back during this flop press a lot of the time. But Vitaly can follow Michael so far because his arm is so long. So sometimes you would think you want a really short, stubby arm to have a good flop press because you have more leverage in the arm. And that's true that you have more leverage, but having a really long arm allows you to follow your opponent really far. Maybe a match like Michael Todd versus Revaz is a good example of this. I think Revaz is almost as tall as Vitaly. I think Vitaly's even a little bit taller, has longer arms. So that can cause someone like Michael a really hard time when he's trying to eventually, after he takes that hand control by going to that open top roll, he's trying to transition and go back through the center of the table. Eventually, he's going to have to do that if he wants to come around with his flop press and actually get a pin. But someone with a super long arm like this can block the whole center table. And it can just make it really awkward for someone like Michael to ever figure out how to climb back through the center. Whereas maybe versus someone like Jerry Kydyrgali, probably Jerry's flop press is much stronger than Vitaly's, but he also can't run as far. He can't follow as far onto Mike's side of the table. So it's just a very different flop press. I imagine Michael hasn't ever faced someone with a flop press exactly like Vitaly's, because I think that Vitaly is the longest arm flop presser Michael's ever gone against. So all that being said, I just found this really interesting to see that Vitaly can have a super, super effective flop press, even though you would think he would be horrible at it because he has those long arms. You would think that that would be the last thing you would want in terms of leverage advantage, but he can actually do it pretty effectively because of those long arms. It gives him the ability to follow and attack Michael in a different way. So all that was looking good. As you guys know, though, this is all leading up to Michael's first, I believe he fouls out in round one. And then in round two, and I think they said he went off the back a little bit. Michael does have kind of huge elbow joints. So this is something that there seems to be some inconsistency in to me. Sometimes it looks like Michael's off the pad. He doesn't get called. Sometimes he does get called. I think that it's a little bit tricky to know, is it your whole elbow has to be on the table? Can just a part of your elbow be touching the pad? So I think maybe there's a little confusion there. Either way, Michael fouls out round one. But probably most people at that point are thinking he's going to take this because he's already defeated Vitaly's hand. Round two is where we see this position right here. And in this one, it's either one of the restarts of round one or round two. But ultimately what's going to happen is Michael is going to, this might be the restart actually, but eventually Michael's going to keep getting that hand control. He's going to be looking great. But he's going to be super close to the pin pad because Vitaly's flop press, at least to me, was shockingly very, very effective. And Michael's going to try to kind of roll out, and we see his pinky dip below the pin pad because he actually kind of opens up his hand really big. And then when he tries to roll out, his pinky just goes right below the pin line. So this was really unfortunate. I hate to see matches end like that because Michael was probably 2-3 inches above a pin, but he basically pinned his own arm by just sticking his pinky underneath the pin line. And you can see at first, Michael's like, there's no way that was a pin. I wasn't even close. And then he realizes that he just pinned his own arm by sticking his pinky below. And you can see him start laughing. He's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. Very amateurish thing to do right there, but it happens sometimes. And you can see Michael just accepts it. He realizes, he knows that he messed that up, but he has one more round left at this point. And it's funny because I feel like Michael has probably been the more dominant arm wrestler in the match up to this point, but he is down 2-0. And the last thing we see him try to do is outside of straps, he tries to hit that flop press, and it just doesn't really hit. And I think that this is maybe a combination of a couple things. Maybe he missed the go a little bit. Maybe he messed up his angle, whatever it was. But then I think maybe in the back of his mind, he's not remembering that he's going against Vitaly. And when Michael tries to do that thing and he does this quite a bit, he'll jump in for that flop press. And then if it hits, great. If it doesn't hit, then he'll sweep back out into the top roll. And that open top roll and slip if he's outside of straps, or he'll just try to fight from there if he's inside straps. The problem with Vitaly is that Michael just didn't quite slip in time. He probably got pinned by like an inch or a half an inch, maybe a quarter inch, just barely getting below that pin pad. It was really difficult to tell on the replay, but it looks like probably he just barely got pinned as he tries to slip out that second time. So to me, like I said, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from VITALY LALETIN. I thought he was extremely impressive, maybe not in the way that you would expect, but in his flop press that you would probably expect him to be bad at. I thought he was really impressive at. And it shows that Vitaly really can do everything and that he seems to have at least pretty good endurance, depending on where Michael's at with that right now. But all that being said, I do think that Michael did kind of make some mistakes that led to the exact outcome we saw. Maybe Vitaly would have defeated Michael either way. It's hard to know, but I would like to see this match at some point again in the future because I do think Michael probably made some pretty serious mistakes here. I don't feel like Vitaly ever beat Michael in a single round. I think Michael made 3 mistakes that led to him getting pinned. Like I said, not saying Vitaly can't beat Michael. I would just love to see it. And that's just, most of it is from the entertainment perspective. I just want to see it, regardless of who ends up winning if they did have a rematch. So let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think that Vitaly would have won either way? And if so, what lane do you think it would have taken place in? And do you think that that was enough of kind of some unfortunate mistakes made maybe that you would like to see this match one more time like me? All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.